Hello there, everyone. My name's Roxanne McCarty-O'Kane, and thank you for joining us for another edition of the Phoenix Phenomenon. Today, I have with me the absolutely incredible Cecilia Bailey. She has probably one of the most amazing stories, life stories and experiences that I've come across for some time. So very, very excited to have her on today to share her story with you. So welcome, Cecilia. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Roxy. Thanks for having a chat.
Not a problem. I love to chat, so it's all good. Perfect. So let's fill you in a little bit on Cecilia's background. Obviously, she will be the absolutely best person to tell her story to you today. But basically, Cecilia is probably one of the most adventurous people I have ever met. She's done skydiving, over 900 skydives. Was a snow bunny, always on the slopes, and even started the Sunshine Coast roller derby tournament and competition, I think you would call it. And yeah, so really, really out there and always looking for an adrenaline fix. But then she suffered a stroke and had to, I guess, navigate the change in identity and discover some new limitations physically and also mentally. So she's had an extraordinary journey, and you know, she's as vivacious and still looking for adrenaline to this day. Let me tell you, you'll get that from hearing her story. So Cecilia, I'd love for you to tell us, to take us on that journey with you, and I guess start with where this adrenaline seeking thing came from. It sounds like it started from an early age.
Yeah, I had my father was a pilot by hobby. He was in the Navy for career, and I spent a lot of weekends at the airstrip with him at the glider club. He would always take me up in the tug plane and release the glider that was being towed up, and then his turn in the glider. If he got the two-seater, I'd be in the back and we'd be doing aerobatics. I'd ask for a zoomie, which is a loop-de-loop. Or I'd pull up really steep and go straight up and then straight down again, like over a hill sort of thing. And yeah, that started from a young age. And then so I learnt to fly as well when I was 15, 16. I guess it's Dad's fault. Took me to the snow every year from a young age, 6, 7, going to the slopes for a week every year through Bow Perisher. Then when we moved to America, it continued over there. On offer, I'd be up for it ever since then.
Excellent. And then so going from being a pilot to jumping out of a perfectly good plane, as people say.
That's exactly what my father says.
Yeah.
You learnt to fly these things. Why do you want to jump out of a perfectly good aeroplane?
Yeah.
Because when you're not flying it yourself, you don't have control. You'd rather jump out.
That's reassuring.
Especially light aircraft. No, you jump out, you got your parachute, you can fly that yourself.
Absolutely. And so tell me about that. Obviously that turned into a really huge passion for you.
Yeah. So when you start skydiving yourself for the sport, you stop getting as such the adrenaline rush that you do experience as a tandem passenger for your one-off flight. And you start having goals and trying to achieve things. Well, especially you're doing a student course and you're concentrating on this, that, and the other. And then you progress to formations like the flat flying and making sure you can dock with 8 people, and you all want to dock on, or 10, and do bigger ways. And then for me, the next progression was free flying, which progressed from flat belly flying to either head down or head up.
Wow.
and there's also an angle component of that style of flying where you fly along the sky. And for a while that was called tracking. And you cover some distance and you work out where you're going to exit the plane so that you still land on the drop zone. And then a new style of flying was called at minority, or angles. It progressed over the years, and different lingo and different countries for that style of flying came about. But for me, I also wanted to sky surf, which meant definitely flying in the vertical position, and experiencing the sky surfing was definite reason I got into skydiving a long time ago. The Pepsi ad, and a lot of people my age will remember.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do that one day.
That's amazing. And so I can only imagine what it would have been like the day of, that you're actually making that a reality.
Yeah, I remember rocking up to the drop zone and seeing a girl, Pauline, and she had bright red hair, black and white jumpsuit, and the sky surfboard at her feet, about to go to the plane. I'm like, one of my instructors at the time, who's now one of my best friends, said to me, she knew that I wanted to sky surf, and I had all of her, like, I don't know, probably 12 jumps on this particular day. She goes, "That's Pauline, you go say hello, tell her what you're aiming to do." And I went up to her like, "Oh, I can't wait to do this." And she's like, "Okay, come back to me when you have 200 jumps."
Oh, no.
But I was like, okay, I just knew what I had to do, just keep racking up airtime and experience and start free flying. And literally, she couldn't teach me. She died doing high performance landings before I had my requirements. But there was a guy who did compete with her, Rob Simonic, down in Melbourne, and he came up for a week at an event to teach me sky surfing. So I still got to experience and learn to do that. It was a pretty amazing time of in the sport, actually. After Pauline died, I was the only female sky surfer in Australia.
Wow.
And another friend at our drop zone learnt to do it. So we had the two people sky surfing in Australia at the one drop zone. And the guy who taught me had kind of pulled out, but if we were going to compete, he was going to get back into it as well. It's a lonely sport when you're only performing yourself and your videographer films you.
Yeah.
But they ended up taking it. We were competing to go to the world competition, and they ended up changing the world competition the next year, making it combined with male female, and then they didn't have enough competitors, so they took it out altogether. So none of us had. You need that goal to head towards to pursue a lonely skydiving career.
Yeah. Oh, what a shame that it ended that way.
Yeah, it was a shame. So yeah, there's no one sky surfing in Australia at the moment. There's a couple interested, but yeah, it's not really done. It would be nice to see it come back though.
Yeah, I imagine you'd be one of the people leading the charge for sure. So.
I asked a couple of questions, so maybe I'll head out and see if I can remember some pointers.
Yeah. You could take on a coaching role, yeah. Yeah, like, food for thought. Yeah. Awesome. And so your other love was roller derby, and if I'm not mistaken, you wanted to start to compete, but you were having to travel, so you literally started your own circuit here on the Sunshine Coast. Is that right?
That's right. found out about roller derby in 2009, and I just moved up to the Sunshine Coast. Unfortunately, it had been in Brisbane since 2007, and I lived there, but for some reason it didn't enter my vortex. So I thought we need to start a league on the Sunshine Coast. So I've just found out how I do that, and had some help from a couple of Brisbane leagues and a Townsville league, and yeah, just got it up and rolling. Put flyers up at all the markets all around the streets. It was much easier to get word out on Facebook back then to strangers, and to 2010, 10 years ago, saw us starting roller derby on the Sunshine Coast.
Amazing.
And that took over from my skydiving year.
Absolutely. And so when you say, the first year, because it was literally the following year, wasn't it, where you had your stroke?
Yeah, so I had all of 2010 and all of 2011 with roller derby, and then had the stroke at the end of 2011, which, everything happens for a reason, but the roller derby community were just so amazing with their support. I had amazing support from all angles of my life, family, friends, roller derby, skydiving friends, and even strangers. There was people that had just heard what happened and offered help and assistance and all of the above. But yeah, the roller derby did this really fun thing for me when I was in hospital. They did a fun, just had this crazy, wacky roller derby bout for a fundraiser. And it was one of the funnest I got. I think I got to pass out of hospital in a wheelchair. I wasn't walking very well, I think, at the time. I've got a good jog back my memory, but might have had some pusher. Anyway, I remember being wheeled through a tower of arms, and this game was out of control. There were no rules. If someone did something wrong and they'd just do it on purpose, they had to come and sit in my lap, and then the crowd had to pay money to get them out of jail, so to speak. And so they'd be just doing all sorts of craziness so that they could go to jail and have money thrown at them to get let out.
That sounds so fun.
Still talk to people who were there. It was the funnest roller derby experience.
Absolutely. But at the same time, it was happening probably at one of the most challenging times of your life. So are you comfortable with sharing sort of how this unfolded for you? Because it wasn't an instantaneous, you're struck down or something's wrong. It was a very different experience for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, people hear the word, you had a stroke, and think, you just get straight to hospital and you get a good chance of recovery. But I had a different kind of stroke. I had a brain tumour that it was benign and wouldn't have been a problem if it hadn't have bled. So the walls of the tumour burst, and that blood then goes into the brain, and the brain doesn't like that. So
I would imagine not, yes.
It was a small bleed, the first one, and I could still move my fingers a little bit, opening and closing. So the first neurologist, neurosurgeon assessment was that, this type of brain tumour often only has the one big bleed. And so we'll just go into rehab, and I was 6 weeks pregnant at the time, so there's also that complication to weigh up with surgery, and brain surgery has huge risks anyway. But 2 weeks later, my tumour bled again, so I obviously had a bleeder, and it was would have just kept bleeding. So we decided to go to Brisbane, book in surgery, but then my pregnancy started bleeding as well. So I had uterine bleeding, and they wanted to monitor that before I went into surgery. So another 2 weeks went by, but there's also the risk of another bleed. So we had to make the call and just go in and do the surgery. So surgery, luckily, went off without a hitch in terms of complications. I've definitely heard of some horrible complications in surgery, like they literally removed my skull and put it back in.
Wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't a light decision, but everything right when I came out was good with the baby. So that was the only thing I wanted to know when I woke up, but I couldn't speak when I came out of the surgery. So that was an scary factor, because I didn't know if that was permanent, and I couldn't say. I could point. They knew what I was asking. Like they did tell me, and they sent me for lots of uterine scans. So the baby was fine after surgery. They just do say that there's not much anaesthetic that crosses the barrier anyway, but whatever does, they will just have a little nap anyway with me. So where was I up to? Not speaking when I came to. So that was one of the scariest times of my recovery. So having that speech, I could understand everything everyone was saying to me. So that was frustrating.
Yeah.
And very frustrating. But it
and
did.
You had already, even in the lead up to even getting to hospital, you had already experienced some other, symptoms of the stroke before that was actually diagnosed. Can you tell people about what you were experiencing before you even made it to the hospital?
Yeah, so I'd get some weird tingling. So there would have been some slight bleeding going on, like half of my mouth, like the lips that was my very first one. Like I remember going to roller derby training, and we'd just gone back, so it would have been end of January. And like said to my friend, "Oh, it's weird. I got some tingling," and it lasted maybe 3 days, and it goes. So then a month later, in my say in the middle of my calf muscle, not the calf muscle itself, but the leg. It's the way I describe it. Like it's not peripheral, it's not muscular, it's in the middle. It's weird now looking back at how many doctors I described that to didn't pick up, like in the middle, like nerves. Anyway, hindsight's 20/20, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Also the arm. I had this episode which made me go to hospital. Some of the stuff is was like in my leg that would last like 15 minutes and then go. So you didn't have anything too crazy going on that you go to an ER. But this one time I did, it was in burning fire. It would go from my face down my arm, travel back up my arm to my face, travel down my arm, down my leg, back up the leg, and do that kind of traveling thing. And it lasted about a good half hour to an hour at home before I was like, I picked up the phone to my work, and I worked with people that did deal with we read medical records charts, so a lot of as a clinical coder, and my peers from my work, I was working from home, but I had my boss was in Sydney, and I had other staff. We were all remote, so I called them and I'm like, guys, this is what's happening to me. It's a bit crazy. Everyone's also, I don't know what's going on. I was I just remember my boss saying, "Oh, if you can't work, and I said, I'm going to go to the ER. Like, this is a bit weird today. Like, I've had other XYZ going on in the past. So I went up to ER and waited for 3 hours to see a doctor. And within the last 20 minutes of my wait, it all just stopped.
Oh, wow.
Pretty common for my things. So they just all of a sudden stop. When I start getting worried about it, they stop. And like, you've got nothing to walk into a doctor or an ER with. Like, you have to feel like an idiot. Like, your brain's bleeding, but you don't know.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. Yeah.
It's all stopped, and I try and describe it then to the doctor, and he's got this really quite normal, she can walk, she can talk. I don't have any typical signs of a stroke. And they this one time put it down to anxiety, probably because I did walk in there pretty anxious, like, this has been going on with me, like, anyway, sent away that time. But I did break my back the year before, so I was getting seen by a orthopedic surgeon, and I asked them the next couple of months later, told them everything happening, and is this as a result of breaking my back? And they said no, because it's happening in both your upper and lower body. And they said, oh, you've got another checkup in 6 months. If it's still happening then, tell us and we'll refer you to the neurosurgeon or neurologist. So
yeah.
So and then it was probably only 2 or 3 months after that appointment that the bigger bleed happened. So I didn't get to see a neurologist before it happened.
Yeah.
Again, hindsight situation. A doctor once said to me, could be the early signs of MS, but it's that's the biggest frustrating thing. A few doctors were going, oh, this or that. Why didn't they just say you can go and get a MRI? It's going to cost you $400, but it might give you some answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I just hope that maybe if someone's watching this and they get some symptoms like this, just get it checked out.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, they're not, the traditional, the stereotypical, stroke symptoms, are they? So it just goes to show that, that it doesn't have to be a textbook case, and it could still be sort of progressing.
This type of brain tumour, when it bleeds, it's mostly known to bleed in someone's late 20s or early 30s. If it doesn't bleed, have a bleed in that stage, you're more likely that it won't bleed at all. And I could have gone my whole life without knowing it existed if I'd have never had the bleed and never had a CT or MRI, which I hadn't had one of my brain ever beforehand, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, so take us through your recovery. You mentioned you woke up and the first thing you noticed was that you couldn't verbalize what you were thinking, you couldn't communicate that way. How did your road to recovery? What did your road to recovery look like?
Okay, so wasn't allowed to wait where I couldn't walk. Anything in that right leg straight away, and in the neurosurgery recovery, this surgery was on the 10th of December, and so there's a good couple of weeks there where you're not even allowed to attempt to walk, and then there's holidays, and then rehab started like the 3rd of January. So getting wheeled to the shower, to the toilet, to everything transferred from a bed. They were some pretty hard times, not being able to talk and verbalize. I remember, because I'm so stubborn, I got wheeled into the shower by male nurses one time, and I just didn't like that. I was like, asked him to leave, and I don't think he was supposed to.
All right.
He did, and then instead of calling him to come back in, I tried to do something myself and fell out of the shower chair. And yeah, then I had to call them. I'm lying on the floor and I couldn't sit up or anything. So that was like, I don't know, kind of a moment of asking for help.
Yeah.
I couldn't do at the time. I don't know. I specified no male nurses from then on.
Yeah.
I think it's either not, I don't know, not used to asking for help anyway. And learning to ask for help is huge.
Yeah.
So going into rehab in early January was really good, actually. It was a slow progression. My speech was definitely coming back more and more every day. Even that time before, I didn't have a speech therapist in the neurology recovery. So it was when I went to the rehab. I was getting 3 days a week of speech therapy, and every day, twice a day, of leg physio and OT for the arm. The leg also was speech the quickest, leg and walking progression the next quickest, and then the arm. In the big muscles, things came back, but there was really minimal to no improvement with the hand and fingers. It was minimal. Like it used to be really tight, and it definitely loosened, and I can squeeze in my fingers, but not force them to open out. And that was fairly expected from the rehab team. They were unsure of what would come back in the leg, but they knew it would be more dominant than what would come back in the arm, and the peripherals are always the last or unknown factor. Because I had two large bleeds, it also made the outcome a bit worse for wear. But I remained positive, I guess, for the rehab. My goal was to be able to walk down the aisle. Our date for the wedding was in March of 2012, and the physio just decided it wasn't unrealistic, and so therefore we just went ahead with it. And I also was practicing with medicine balls to carry the weight of a baby with just my left arm. So that's what my rehab work revolved around. Also trying to learn to be on my knees. But even that was hard. Like moving in a crawling position with one arm and on your knees. I couldn't do it at all, actually. At first I collapsed. Stomach muscles weren't there as much as they are now. Little things like that. Like the first time I tried to hold myself on my knees and one arm was this flop. I haven't remembered that one for a while. So it's amazing what has improved for me as other muscles came into play, like stomach muscles down my right side are stronger now. It was only probably a couple of years ago I could walk down stairs or a curb without holding onto someone's hand or a rail. Even though I still choose to hold the rail because I can lose my balance pretty easy.
Yes, yeah.
My right foot has foot drop, so my ankle I can't pull up, and my toes I can't move. So they trip me up on things all the time.
But I guess, you know, they were some pretty massive goals for you to be working towards in your rehab. So, you know, it sounds like that determination and stubbornness, as you say, definitely kicked in.
Yes, for sure. I'd get comments of the older friends in rehab. Were like, wow, you're so just determined and driven, and they would see improvement like either daily or weekly. And I'd get my little rehab team, like they'd be inspiring them to just do stuff as well. So that was pretty good to have a little crew in there charging.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just have this knack for building community around you, don't you? It's incredible.
Yeah, it does seem to happen.
Perfect. And so, yeah, I mean, you've obviously gone on. You are a mother. You've got a beautiful, healthy young boy now, and you've started to definitely tap into that sense of adventure once again. I'm hearing stories about, you know, stand-up comedy routines and also ice hockey, I believe, as well, more recently.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So both of those things, the stand-up comedy and the ice hockey, are both things that are giving me that feeling again. I only experienced the ice hockey in the last month of their season. They're closed for the year now and start again, I think, February next year. So I can't wait to do a full season. And got a taste for it. Love it. The feeling of a group sport, high full impact of. I need a guide to help push the sled that para ice hockey. You sit on this sled and the other guys have two sticks and they've got spikes on the end that they push in the ice.
Yes, yeah.
There's a couple of guys that represented Australia on a world level, and it's unreal to get around with them and learn the sport from them. Can't wait for that to evolve. And the comedy was, I guess I accidentally stumbled across that. One of my coaches in the business coach academy was speaking about her sister who runs a sister-in-law running a comedy course, and she knew that a sister-in-law had people through to improve their speaking, and it's a different style of speaking, and just she's like, oh, I just thought I'd give you her details, and you might want to do this. I'm like, you know, that'd be fun. It's something while I'm still setting up my goals of being a public speaker, inspirational speaker, then might as well just do all these things along the way to give me the I don't know, best opportunity, I guess, at becoming a decent presenter. And so I did it and did my graduation. Act. And got off stage, and we just had this buzz, like feeling of like getting down from my first skydive. I was like, oh yeah. And that's exactly how I felt after being on the ice for that para ice hockey. I'm like, oh yep, this is a keeper.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, I've actually signed myself up for some more comedy in February, the Royal Comedy competition at the for just beginners and people wanting to test it out. So I'm going to continue the challenge and fun of that for sure.
Yeah, February's going to be a big month.
Yeah, it's huge. I think next year is going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you mentioned, you know, you have been getting into speaking and getting on stages and really connecting with so many people through sharing your journey, which is a brave thing in itself, by the way. So I always congratulate people who can get up and be real and raw and share their message. So and that's obviously something that's ignited a passion in you as well, to get that awareness out there and to build that connection among people.
Yeah, I think with my story, even if people haven't ended up with physical disabilities, most people can connect with some identity issues in their life, like, oh, what's going on with me, or just hardship, mental health issues. There's so many similarities and threads woven in through my story that people can connect with and identify with. And even as common and simple as becoming a mother, and for a lot of people that changes their identity. For me, luckily, it was a positive one. I don't think I filled in your audience. I lost my first pregnancy, the one I was pregnant with in rehab, just a couple of weeks after I got out of rehab and a week before my wedding. And then I did fall pregnant again the next year, and obviously have a beautiful 6-year-old boy. So for me, when that pregnancy happened, it gave me an identity. Whereas when a lot of women fall pregnant and lose a certain aspect of their life, they suffer an identity crisis of having lost a past identity. So
yeah, of course,
it's different for everyone, which path their identity goes on, but it's very common that people can identify with the feeling going through that. Yeah, it's I couldn't even say the word disabled for a good 2 or 3 years without crying.
Yeah.
I would find that sentence coming in my head and pause where that word's supposed to come out and either just instantly start crying, or I got pretty good at sentence structuring without using that word. So it was huge for me to come to an acceptance level of I'm disabled. And although people, there's different levels for everyone. Some people are born with disabilities and will acquire them through trauma and illness, or so many different levels and experiences for everyone is different. But I'm finding just starting to talk about it is a great step for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just getting on and doing things that are important for me to identify with, which motherhood was always one, and extreme sports, and it's really shifted my attitude and perspective on abilities or disabilities. And I think
because there is so much power behind the word, but when you look at what you are still capable of doing, like you're essentially you're just finding new avenues, but you're still pursuing the passions that you had before.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and maybe more so with people that haven't had people with physical disabilities in their life, a lot of people just see it as on the outside shell, but you know, and really that's all it is. It's just your vessel, your body it's just changed, or and you work with what you've got. But you, I guess, I'm lucky enough to say that I'm still me, and in mind, I know not everyone is lucky to come away with memories and all that mental things that can be lost through, some people have with stroke or trauma. But yeah, your vessel's changed, and what I can do is still out there. I just had to find it.
Absolutely.
Open to doing things different ways, and yeah.
Definitely. And so speaking about doing things different ways, I know you're like a captain of this, but you actually have a really exciting project that you're working towards for 2020 that will really help, you know, to build community. There we go again. You're building community and giving people with able-bodied and people with disabilities a chance to, you know, step outside their comfort zone to really connect with potentially some new passions that they haven't considered possible for themselves before. Exactly. I'd love for you to share that with our readers and listeners. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not writing today. I've got my writing hat on. Yeah.
I am very passionate about this project. I'm going to get started this year. It's called Daredevils with Disabilities, and I want to take a group of people, start a community down, first of all, down at the snow in Australia, and spend, I don't know, a long weekend celebrating the things, adventurous things we can still do with disabilities. So whether you're disabled or able-bodied, I just want a celebration nonetheless. So yeah, I'm getting that off the ground as we speak, and I'm so excited to have that in the motion. It's, yeah, I'm gonna go down my rabbit hole. It's kind of makes me feel like when I started roller derby and when I started skydiving, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing this community event or Daredevils with Disabilities.
It's like a magnetic pull for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I know that in stages of my recovery, something like this would have been unreal to attend and to know about and to just rip my claws into. So I can't be the only one.
No, of course not. No.
So yeah, it's going to be a fun couple of days of skiing, snowboarding, music, yeah, demos, yeah, action-packed, even some seminars as well, you know, health-orientated, sexuality-orientated, comedy-orientated, because, you know, we all need to smile.
Yeah, we know who the headline is going to be.
Won't make people, yeah. But yeah, there'll, yeah, there will definitely be some awesome things. I really want to support some startup, you know, startups. There'll be people, you know, maybe newly experiencing adventure with disabilities. There'll be people starting, able-bodied in whatever level, musicians, startup people that want to. I just really want to support the from a ground level. Maybe I'll have a headlining someone who's nearly there, spice things up. But who knows?
Yeah. Put it out there. You never know what will happen and who will cross your path. So that's incredible, and it's just beautiful to see. Like your eyes are just sparkling speaking about this. It's amazing.
I feel like I don't know, warmer, and I feel like sparkles just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's incredible. And so is there any way that people even at this stage can connect with you and, you know, maybe offer some support or get on board with the team, or what is it that you're looking for to help you to make this a reality?
Oh, well, there's I'll definitely be after some sponsorship to make this happen. There'll be the standard requests, I guess, in print and visual media. But then there'll be some definite funding from big sponsors who'd be interested of having their names plastered at the snow, and all the PR I'm going to get with Daredevils with disabilities.
Totally. It's going to rock so many people's worlds. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so if people are interested before I contact them, that'd be great. Unfortunately, my website's not active yet, but I'll share with you my best email link, and
Perfect.
you know, Cecilia Bailey speaker on Facebook is a very easy way to contact me right now.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll pop that in a link below so that people can just click straight through. That's nice and easy. Excellent. And of course, yes, you're looking for speaking opportunities as well to really get this incredible story of yours out there, and to inspire and motivate and just really build that connection.
That's right. If there's people want to share my interest of public speaking with people they know that book speakers, that would be wonderful. I've got a few booked in, and I just I want to book in as many as I can next year.
Absolutely. And what is it like for you to be you know, up on stage and really sharing your story and seeing, you know, the audience reaction and how they're really taking in your message?
Yeah, it's very when I do it and feel that connection, it just makes me realize I'm doing it for reasons. Like it's meant to be. It probably I don't know. It gives everything that happens to me a purpose as well. To know that so many people can resonate with what's happening or be inspired is, I don't know the words to describe it. It's humbling. Like the feeling of connection in that room is insane. Like, I don't know, electric. That's probably the best way to describe it, because it's how in skydiving, when they do big wave formations, like 100 waves, you know, big one. I've never done this, but they say when that last person makes connection, like that docking point, and it's happened and everyone knows they've got it, this like electric feeling and connection as it goes across the whole formation. And I feel like I've experienced that in speaking. Like, I've never experienced the big formation connection. I'm like, now I have, when I'm speaking, in that moment of connection, it's just there. It's like, yeah, it's special.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I don't want to keep you for too much longer, so I did want to ask you though, if you would like to share maybe one of the core messages that you give to your audiences when you speak, or if there's, you know, a message you want to leave with our watchers today and listeners.
The big one for me is, it kind of revolves around the perception that people have of able-bodied people versus disabled. And because I realize how I'm treated by strangers since I've been physically disabled, I get treated with much more kindness and help and assistance, and especially I don't know, strangers, and being kind and offering to do things for me. And at first, you know, just veering off topic right now, I couldn't handle it, and I accept it a lot better now.
Mm.
And it's a gift I kind of am able to give them, and I'm not stomping on their beautiful acts of kindness. I think it's amazing to see how often I'm offered kindness.
Yeah.
But it gets me thinking about the able-bodied people and the amount of able-bodied people that are not treated with kindness and respect and compassion. And there's a lot of mental health issues in this day and age for whatever reason, and you just don't know who is dealing with what issues. So a lot of people are invisibly disabled, and no one stops to give a regular able-bodied person walking the street kindness, compassion. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are beautiful, kind people out there every day, but you don't have this second thought like you do when you look at a person who's physically disabled. And I just, it's the biggest thing I think I want to spread is just everyday compassion, kindness, respect and caring for everyone, no matter disabled, able-bodied. And imagine the beautiful world we'd live in if more and more people considered everyone being disabled in some way, mentally, invisibly, physically, whatever. Just treat people with kindness and respect.
Excellent. That is such a beautiful message, and one that we can all take on board. So thank you so much for speaking from the heart just then. That was really beautiful. So, and definitely an incredible takeaway for everyone to take. So thank you. And thank you so much for your time, Cecilia. It's so lovely for you to share your story with us all today.
Thanks
And if for anyone who does want to connect with Cecilia, we will pop her details below so you can click through. Want to book her and, you know, have an incredible experience for speaking, or get on board this absolutely fabulous Daredevils with Disability weekend. It's going to be something I believe that we haven't seen before. It's going to be absolutely terrific. So thank you again so much for sharing so much of yourself today, Cecilia.
Thank you, Roxy.
Okay, take care.